What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
And my name is Dave.
And this is The Deep Dive.
It is.
We are week 3.
Nick and Dave.
That's true.
Yeah.
Nick and Dave's Deep
That's
Dive.
right, yeah.
It's
All
ours.
Right. Here we are.
Here we are.
All right.
But we're still on the wrong side. If you look at, I should be over there, you should be over here.
Yeah, I like this side. Okay.
It's probably good, so you don't see all the distractions out there. You can kind of stay locked in.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes am like, what's happening? But
Yeah.
anyway, y'all have heard us ramble enough. We are in our 3rd week of this series on Ruth,
Yeah.
which is really beautiful because it's 4 chapters. It's going to be a 4-week series, so we're kind of doing a chapter a week.
Winding it up this next week, ended on a cliffhanger last week. So
Last week was a little bit of a calm before the good stuff, and now we're jumping right in.
Yeah. Well, let's walk through it, okay?
Let's do it. Well, I have to just tell you one sports thing that has been really hilarious to me. I don't know if you've still kind of been following the Braves or whatever.
Nothing is hilarious there.
Well, it is.
They got like beat by 13 last night or something.
Yeah. Oh, they got destroyed last night.
Yeah.
But the funny part is, they were getting close to that, like, well, maybe they'll get top draft pick territory. Let's just kind of mail it. And then they just went on like an 8-2 win run.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't even lose right. No, I'm just joking. But
Yeah.
No, they want to keep playing. But all attention's being turned to football at this point. I think everybody in Georgia's just waiting for preseason to be done for pro and college to kick off.
We're about ready to do our draft for our fantasy football league.
Yeah, we've got 6 teams right now. If you're interested in joining a fantasy football league, hit me up before too long. We can get you in.
Yep.
I just thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Another way to connect and give a little joking around. So we'll have to update people as we go.
All right, so let's talk about Ruth.
Let's talk about Ruth.
Specifically Ruth chapter 3, but I'm not going, because I've done this both weeks, I'm not going to go into the details of like everything that's happened because hopefully people have been watching. If not, go back and
watch the podcast.
Watch the podcast of the sermons, and we'll catch you up. But just in a two or three sentences, we've got a story that started off in a really bad place with a lot of loss for Naomi's family. But along the way, God blessed her by this beautiful daughter-in-law, Ruth, who is very dedicated to and loyal to her, and goes back with her, leaves her own family, and comes back to Bethlehem with her, and then actually begins working, trying to help her, get their sustenance, to get their daily bread, so to speak.
Yep.
And along the way, they meet our other main character, Boaz, who's one of the heroes in the story. We got 3 of them, Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz. And so it leads us up into chapter 3, where we encounter some weird cultural stuff. And so since it's just you and me and whoever's listening talking, we can actually talk in maybe a little more plain English than I can in a Sunday morning sermon. But, there's some weird cultural stuff that, I just thought about, like somebody who had never read the Bible before and said, hey, read read the book of Ruth. And they would get to chapter 3 and going like, what in the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It feels like a start of a scandalous movie or something like that.
There's a part that in modern context can sound scandalous, but there's a lot of cultural stuff going on, and there's some interpretive stuff that we need to know about, and it makes it actually into a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So it starts off with Naomi saying to Ruth in the beginning of chapter 3, we need to find you a husband. She didn't quite use that language, but she says
it's essentially it's time to move on. It's time to move.
We need somebody that's going to protect you. That stuff. And we're in this culture where women really, they weren't protected if they didn't have a husband. And so she says that Boaz is our, as a distant relative of mine. And he's also, it's kind of implied, but he's also a kinsman redeemer. And sort of their job as a kinsman or redeemer to take care of the family, and to redeem them, their land, their property, and make sure they're safe. And so she says to her, put on your best dress, put on
Get
some
your perfume,
go down to where he's working, which is at the threshing floor where, he's the owner of all this. And so he's down there where they've gathered all this barley to be threshed and made into, to be usable for making bread and that sort of thing. Go down there. Don't say anything. Don't let him know you're down there. But after, he's had, his dinner and he's had something to drink and goes to bed, go down and lie next to him and uncover his feet, which a lot of people have misconstrued as being something very forward on her part to do that. But essentially, it wasn't. It was symbolic of what she was asking him to do as the kinsman redeemer. And so at some point in the night, Boaz wakes up and is astonished to find
there's a lady sleeping at his feet.
There's a young woman sleeping at his feet. And she is very humble and says, I'm Ruth. She doesn't say this. I'm reading the text. We've met.
Yes. You know who I am.
We've met. But I'm coming to you because you are our kinsman redeemer. And I'm asking you to cover me, with your blanket. It's very symbolic. This week we'll get into another symbolic thing where they hand us a sandal off as part of a deal with land and property and stuff, which is weird.
Yeah, why?
Weird to us. It's like a handshake deal
right
with them. But so there's these weird cultural things we got to understand the context, or it just seems weird, or our minds go off into the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so he says to her, I am willing to do this thing, but there is a closer relative who actually has first dibs on all this. And so I need to talk with him. But I will tell you this, as God is my witness, if he won't do it, I will do it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things to unpack there in that symbolism of how it becomes a beautiful story. First of all is the faithfulness, the wisdom of Naomi. Mm-hmm. Let's start there. She saw the wisdom but there is a proactiveness to it. It's not just, he's our kinsman redeemer. Let's see if he'll do anything. No, there is this proactiveness of we need to ask him to do that. And so, I think lots of times we in the church saying, God's going to take care of this, but we just sit back and just wait on God, and we don't do what is the next right thing to do. Yeah. And so an example I thought, and it's a simple example, but I think it's a pretty good one, is a farmer. Mm-hmm. We can all relate to that, even though we're not farmers. We understand what they do. And so farmers, they work the field. They go down, they plow, they get the weeds out, they get the land ready, they plant the seeds. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't stop the farmer from then praying for God to rain, praying for a good harvest. And so, it's kind of a both and. We have to be, we have to do our part. Yeah. We trust. It's all trust in God, but we're doing the part that we're expected to do. So
and I like the farmer illustration too, because also you kind of consider along the way, it's not just the work up front, but there's still that little bits of work to kind of maintain and keep the land. And I think our faith is meant to be lived in action. And I think even when we ask for God, that doesn't mean we just sit there and go, bring me a Lamborghini in hopes that a Lamborghini just shows up, but if the Lamborghini is really what God wants, maybe it's the work that you have to put into to buy I'm not saying the Lamborghini, but you know what I mean?
I get the point. Maybe a little exaggerated.
But you got to put in the work and the effort. God has gifted us bodies to use, and I think we're supposed to use those for His glory.
Right, yeah. I mean, the blessings that God has given us with what God's provided for us is to use that. And we're always hoping that, there's more. I mean, like, I think about like our church finances, people have been very generous. Things are better than they were.
Yeah.
But yet it's us being faithful in those little things that we have, realizing that God is going to bless and God's going to take care of us. And we can see that. So it is this both and. I think the slippery slope is when we think we've done it all ourselves.
Yeah.
And we depend on God for everything, for all the blessings of life. And so Ruth comes, she takes the wisdom of Naomi to realize it, and she shows a lot of courage. I'll get into this a little bit more, but she's a foreigner.
Right.
She is not only a foreigner, she is a Moabite, and Moabites had a very strange and conflicted relationship. They are actually related to the Jews distantly back in Genesis.
Oh.
There was a big falling out, and they worship other gods. And there's been a lot of wars between them, but they are somewhat related, but they don't like each other most of the time.
Okay.
And so not only is she a foreigner, she's a Moabite.
Right.
And so she's coming, but she comes with this humility. You have to go back and look at the text with the language that she uses. She's not coming demanding that he does this.
Right.
She is coming very much in humbleness, asking him
Right.
to do this thing. Cover. We're asking you to cover us. And
Now,
so,
just for clarification, when the covering, is that the symbolic, are we talking about a marriage covenant here, or is this more of just like, I just need you as my kinsman to kind of take care?
Well, you're skipping ahead to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But yes, that's part of the deal.
Okay.
That's part of the deal, and we'll see that. It's pretty interesting how that comes about in chapter 4. I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Got it.
But yeah, I mean, he is redeeming her because her husband has died.
Right.
And so that's part. They had multiple wives back then, different culture again.
Yep.
And so he would take her as part of the deal.
Got it. Okay.
As well as redeeming the land that actually her father-in-law, who has passed away, but Elimelech owned.
Right.
Redeeming that land too,
Yep.
and the property. And so I'll break that down more this Sunday, and we'll be able to talk about it next week.
Jumping ahead.
But yeah, I mean, there's some cultural things too, but I don't want to get ahead. We'll do that
Sure.
next week. There's chapter 4 ends up really great.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 ends in a cliffhanger. Because he says, I got to go talk to this guy. There's a closer relative. He's next. He is in line for this. So what I really respect about Boaz and how he handles this is that he does things in the proper way, in the right way. Even though it slows down, he's willing to do it. He could say, okay, I'm in. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I have seen you are, and he actually compliments her. He says, I have watched you. You are a woman of noble character, and everybody knows it about how noble you are, not just for what you've done for Naomi, but just the way and she says, you haven't chased out after the younger men, and he uses that language. So, you're a person of integrity.
Yeah.
And so, I am willing to do this, but we've got to do this in the right way.
Yeah.
I've got to take it to this other guy, and I've got to ask him. And so it reminds me, like lots of times you and I have talked, sometimes getting things done in the church takes a lot longer than you and I wish that it did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But, we wish that we could fast forward and fast track stuff. But there is a right way to do things.
Yeah.
And it is in church life. It is in our regular life too. And lots of times we want to skip those steps. And so the example I used, and you can tell me if you thought it was a good example or not, but like I was talking about social media influencers, but I could bring it down just to anybody who gets on X or Facebook or any of those things. There is a lot of stuff that comes across our feed, and it might just be, right where we are. And it might feel good, like, wow, this thing happened with this politician, or, I've actually seen some good stories about some celebrities. It's like, wow, this is a great story. I want to forward on. But, in the example of the social media stuff, person, he gets this thing and he says, wow, if I post this, I'm going to get a lot more followers. This thing is going to blow up and it's going to go viral. And, for a social media influencer, that's money.
That's the goal,
That's the goal,
Yep.
to get followers, to get likes.
Yep.
That, boosts their money. But this guy goes, I don't know. That sounds almost too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
It would feel so good to go ahead and post this, but I need to do some research.
Yep.
I got to fact check this. I got to check this source and see if it plays out. And he does and finds out it doesn't. And so he doesn't forward it on and he loses out.
Right.
However, what he gains is integrity.
Yeah.
Because if I was a person who was following them and knew that that's the kind of care they took before they put anything out there, I would trust that source a lot more, right?
Right.
And so I don't think it's too hard to make the shift to plain to us. If we're walking integrity, if we're doing the right thing, right things, if we're doing it in the right way, in the right order, even though it takes longer, there is integrity in that, and Boaz just shows a ton of integrity here.
Absolutely. And to kind of follow up with your point, there is like there are so many social media influencers that would just like the quick fast track.
Almost all of them.
Yeah, and like I've seen a couple people I follow who would have to backtrack and like go, hey, I was absolutely wrong on this.
And then you have to eat crow,
And instead of the popularity, or not the popularity, but instead of like their blow up, it actually will diminish their integrity. It'll diminish what people trust in them. And I think that's what you're saying. And you also got to consider the fact that even though somebody didn't post it, you might not get that acknowledgement up front, you know what I mean? But you're still maintaining a trustworthy appearance, kind of like Boaz was saying. It's like we can see that you're a woman of integrity. You know what I mean? Just by your actions and what you're doing and not doing. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of lives through all of our actions.
And I'm sure you're like me too. There's certain people that I follow. And then, like, I've never heard that they didn't do that, like they held back.
Yeah.
But I know that everything that I've ever checked out that they posted has been true.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I trust them. Still check them out. You got to these days.
Yeah.
But, I say, this guy put it out there. This woman put it out there. It must be true.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to fact check these things these days. It just takes a second.
And just a public service announcement here in the middle of the podcast: please don't believe everything you read on the internet without fact checking.
Absolutely. Well, not to go down a rabbit trail, but the latest trend has been these good stories, these feel good stories that turn out
to be fake.
Yeah. And so it made me feel good. There's a ton of stuff like dirt on somebody or whatever, that, it's either not true at all or a half truth or misleading. But there's stories out there that just go like, oh, that just warms my heart.
Yeah.
And then you find out it's not true. And, so what is the harm in that? Because it was a good, feel-good story. I do think it's because we need to honor truth.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a part of truth, I know, that there's two sides to things, and so it's subjective. But there's some things that it's black and white. It's true or not.
Right.
And, when I read something that's put out, maybe it's a political position that I agree with, that somebody's put in, and I go back and fact check it, and I was going like, well, they're telling they have edited this thing it is misleading at best. I won't say they're completely lying. There may be
maybe it's stretched a little bit from
an ounce of truth in there, but it is very misleading what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I just feel like actually a people of faith, we've got to do better.
Yeah.
With what we're putting out there. For me, I don't post stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say other people shouldn't. But if it's something that's just going to make some people go, yeah, and other people get really angry, I just don't think that honors Christ, in my opinion.
Me either.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to a buddy Sunday. We went out to dinner, and I was telling him, if I didn't feel like there were spaces where I needed social media, that I would be totally off of it at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to tell you, the only reason I stay on Facebook is the church stuff, because we have so many church members that are on there, and it's a way. It's one of our
way to stay connected.
It's one of our prime ways that we we communicate and connect. And so, I mean, about all you'll ever see on my feed is church stuff.
Same. You might get the random sports events, but that's about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'm not calling anybody out for not doing that, but just be careful.
Yeah.
Just be careful. Social media is killing us.
Yep.
It's killing us. It's dividing us as a country, and it's I think diluting what truth is, and we got to do better than that. So anyway, where were we in the story? So he's going to do this. Yeah. So he also says, sleep here for the rest of the night, and but then they get up early and she leaves so no one sees it because he doesn't want a scandal. He's keeping her dignity,
keep everything above board,
and integrity. But he does send her home with some food for Naomi. He says, "Don't go home empty-handed. Here's some grain to take home to Naomi." So she comes home. Naomi asks her how'd it go. And she says, "Well, he's got this other guy he's got to talk to, but he seems like he's willing to do it." And she says, I know of Boaz, and he will not rest until this thing is settled. And so we just wait.
Yep.
And so I think that's a great example for us too. We do everything that we can. We do all that we feel like God has called us to do, but sometimes we just have to wait.
Yeah.
We just have to wait. And my great example for that was, a couple waiting for a child, and we just went through it with my daughter and son-in-law. There's so much to do to get ready for that. You've got to do all the appointments and the neonatal, stuff, vitamins and things like that. Yeah. You got to prepare the nursery.
Put the covers on the plugs.
Think about, all this stuff to do. But when the baby comes, the baby's going to come when
the baby comes. Yeah. You're
they
waiting.
might give you some arbitrary date, but it's usually not right.
Right.
And so, I know they do, they induce labor and stuff like that. But it's still, the point is, we can apply it to our faith for things that we prayed for, things that we waited for. I think about like what we're doing with this building that, we have a dream of building here. Yeah. I feel like it's taking a long time, and people listening to this who are in the congregation who are on the building committee may think it's taking a long time to, that, and we're trying to be forthright in getting communications back to the church, but we're trying to do the right things in the right way as far as honoring the plans of the survey that we had of what we, need to build, what the desire of the congregation is, to make sure financially that we're not putting the church in a bad place. And so there's a lot of work to do. Yeah. And there's a lot of work to do. And, and so sometimes it just takes time. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And, who knows when the ground will officially break and all that, but you're right. I mean, we are doing the work to be the best steward of what we have. Yeah. And then there's going to be a point where we're waiting on schedules, we're waiting on timing and stuff like that to make sure it's working for all the moving pieces, but also the company's got to kind of work through, you know what I mean? Like,
so it takes time, and you can, I know people can probably think of 100 ways in their life where they've done that, and it can get discouraging to wait, and you wonder if God's paying attention, but God is at work, and sometimes it takes time. Yeah. And I think as we ended on this cliffhanger this week, because I think people have a good idea what's going to happen. A lot of people are familiar with the Book of Ruth, but it ends in a really great way. And then we actually see the implications for our lives, for Christ as our Redeemer. And all of this little, in some ways, simple story, simple but beautiful story of faithfulness and, integrity and courage and loyalty and all these great things that we learn in the Book of Ruth. So
all words I hope describe me one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're all getting there. We're all getting there. But anyway, so that brings us really to the end of chapter 3. Yep. They're waiting to see what happens, and it starts right in there in chapter 4, and that's what we'll be covering this week. And so, that's where we are.
Well, there's your preview for next week, and we do invite you to come join us on Sunday, hear the sermon live, and join for a good time. There's great classes and stuff to get connected to as well. Come be a part of the community of faith we got here if you're not already. But yeah, so come join us Sunday. Otherwise, we've enjoyed doing this podcast. We've enjoyed kind of diving into Ruth a little deeper. If you see me like shaking, there's a fly flying around here somewhere. But if you have good comments, any questions or anything like that, you can drop it on the Facebook, on the YouTube, in the comments section below. Anything else, Dave, here at the end?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
God bless.